So if I were to describe 2018 for me, um, I would say it would be like my breakout year. Now, obviously, I was very well known, like within the 77th, but I would say that 2018 was when like I became well known, very well known, um, with the Holdfast community at large, like with all the different regiments and everything. Um, because with the 77th, it was pretty much like Steam, TeamSpeak, and really that's about it. Um, but 2018, I started using like Discord, and I started up like Austro's melee server, and I got a lot of different people in there and stuff. So yeah, 2018 was like probably my biggest holdfast year, and probably the year where I accomplished the most. Um, Now, I didn't win any tournaments in 2018, but I think I established like my name, like my brand and everything like that. Um, so yeah, I started working for AGS. This would be January and February. I didn't actually end up working for them for too long. But from what I can remember, I think things were going well like early on. My first task, and I think this was like my first and last task actually. They wanted me to like create a set of Spanish buildings. Um, so they had me create, I think, three different Spanish buildings. I think one was like a small little chapel, and then two were like actual like buildings that you could like go inside and like fire from and stuff. Um, and one of the buildings, they were like huge. This was like a three-story building that I created. They gave me the references and everything. And yeah, this was three floors. I think Holdfast right now only has like a maximum of like two stories. But yeah, this was a really tall building, three floors, and it would have been awesome if it made it in game. Um, I remember kind of getting burnt out really quickly because, well, for War of Rights, I created one building, but that was like the only building they ever asked me to create. And but for this, it was like three buildings back to back to back, and they wanted me to make them all destructible. Pretty much to make something destructible, you have to like create it like in full, and then you have to kind of like create a copy of that model and then kind of break it up bit by bit, and it's just a lot of work. And I made all three destructible. With the third and final one, I kind of was like fed up, and I was like, okay, like I'm not getting paid and this is a lot of work, so like I don't really want to do this anymore. And they were like, oh, don't worry, like you don't have to make them destructible anymore. But I think if they just gave me like simpler tasks, like hey, make this prop, hey, like make this barrier, or we need more furniture for this building, like I think if it was just like simple stuff like that, it would have been okay. And I think like if you're not paying someone, then why would you give them like very complex tasks like make this building, make it destructible, make sure that you import in the player model and they can fit through the door and do this and do that, and like all these like different criteria and stuff for like someone that you're not even paying. Like this is pretty much like an internship, right? So you don't give an intern like very complex tasks, right? So I felt kind of gypped in that regard. But uh they made a news post. I think many of you have already seen this, of like my upcoming buildings. They weren't textured yet, and they asked me what name I wanted to be credited by, and I said Austro, but then I also gave them like my real name, like my real first and last name, like because by then like I had no enemies within the community. I was pretty well known. I think everyone like liked me, even like the 77th even Jupiter and I were like on warm-ish terms. So back then like I didn't have any enemies, and I didn't think I would have any enemies. And so I was a bit naive, and I was like, okay, here's my name. um and that one decision would really haunt me for years to come. It even haunts me right now because people dox me. I don't want to say like on a regular basis, but I have had to deal with lots of doxes, and it all. comes back to that one post. Now I have told AGS to like remove my name from the news post, but they tell me that it's archived, so they can't really do anything. So that was just like I don't think they should have even asked me for my real name, and I don't think I should have given it to them. So I think it was like an error on both ends. But I ended up leaving the development team like on pretty good terms. Like I didn't tarnish my reputation with AGS. That would happen a little bit afterwards. But that's a different chapter. Um, so after that, like I pretty much had two things going for me. Like when I was on AGS, I had like the development thing going for me, but then I was also really grinding melee. So I had pretty much two paths or two things that were like going at the same time, like my AGS development stuff and my melee stuff. So when the AGS stuff ended, um, well, actually back in January, a very important, probably the most important melee update of Holdfast came out, the January 2018 melee update, and that pretty much made blocking possible. Now, it was always possible before in 2017, but it was extremely hard, and there was a delay, and it was just a big mess, and people just didn't even try it. But in 2018, blocking was actually like it was pretty close to what we have right now, like with that instantaneous like auto response blocking. So all of a sudden, people were actually blocking now, and people were interested in duels. Now, people weren't interested in competitive because melee still had a lot of problems. Like there were still like a lot of invisible stabs, and there were like a lot of double stabs. And for people that have never played in that melee, it's not really something like exploits that you could take advantage of. It's something that happened while you were fainting. So you could be doing your regular feints and you would be invis stabbing or you would be double stabbing and you couldn't control when that would happen. It wasn't like on an RNG pretty much. It was like an RNG exploit. But obviously fainting is a normal part of the game, right? So obviously you're gonna faint, but when you faint, you don't know when those glitches are gonna happen. So a lot of people like to say that I took advantage of 2018 melee, but I really didn't. All I was doing is fainting, and everyone was fainting. So when I was invis stabbing people, people were invis stabbing me, right? So it was kind of like a double-edged sword. But anyway, let me see here. Um, yeah, so Jupiter introduced me to someone named Jake. Jake was this NW guy. He had a lot of hours in NW melee. I think he had like thousands of hours. And the first thing Jupiter tells me was, "This guy Jake, he's gonna beat you." And I'm like, "Oh, come on, yeah, whatever." Jake also goes by Proud of Dixie. So by this point, no one had really beaten me in a duel. Now I wasn't going on a rampage across the whole community. This would come later, but like within the 77th, like no one could really stand against me. And this guy Jake, this was after the 2018 update, and the first time I dueled him, he did something very weird. He kept on stabbing the ground. Now back then, you could stab the ground and it wouldn't cancel your attack, so you could stab the ground and then immediately faint again. So what he kept doing was he kept stabbing the ground, and then he would, because he was fainting, he would like quickly stab into me and I wouldn't have a chance to block. So he kept doing this to me and he ended up beating me. And I was like, whoa, like this is the first time I was like, whoa, like someone can actually beat me in this game. Okay. And then we kept fighting and we became friends and stuff. And then I don't know how exactly I met him, but his name was Patton, Patton, Patton. And he had a very simple style. And I think that even though like I didn't melee him for long, and he didn't even stick around the whole melee scene for that long, I think he had the biggest impact on me um, in my entire melee career, I guess, because he was the exact opposite of Jake. Like, he was doing some very simple stuff. Like, he would stand still and he wouldn't even like faint or anything. Like, he might move side to side a little bit. And whenever you would come into range, he just stab you. Like, there was no unnecessary movements. There was no unnecessary like fainting or spamming. He just always did what he needed to do to beat you. And it was so weird because he wasn't really spinning and he wasn't really fainting and he wasn't really moving that much, but he just kept beating me. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, so then I asked him, like, you're beating me, but your style is so simple. Like, what? How are you doing this? And he just told me that if you only focus on what you need to do and just ignore all like the unnecessary noise, things are gonna get a lot easier for you. And those words just had a huge impact on me. And I think that's like if I stayed with Jake and never met Patton, I might have like developed a style that many players today do with like, the whole W keying, crowd spamming, sort of like crazy style. But Patton had a huge impact on me, and he was just so simple and so defensive and just always caught you at range. And like I kept dueling him, I kept dueling him, I kept dueling him, and I just couldn't beat him. And until one day, um, he was pretty much like my brick wall. Like I tell every new player that every new melee player, like, eventually you're gonna run into a brick wall. It might not happen on your first day, it might not happen on your 10th day, it might not even happen like in your first few months, but eventually you're going to meet a player and he's gonna be a brick wall to you. A brick wall that you just can't get past. And that's pretty much going to be your testing grounds of how you want to move forward with the whole melee thing. You can turn around and walk away from that brick wall. You can give up on melee. You can go to a rifle tourney or something. That's an option that many players choose and many players do. Or you can bash your head against that brick wall until you just get through it. And obviously, if you have warband experience, if you're naturally talented, you're gonna be hitting that brick wall with like, I don't know, like a metal helmet or something to get through it easier. But you just have to keep bashing your head through that brick wall until you break through. And for me, my only brick wall, I think the since 2017 I've played melee and it's 2021 now. My only brick wall was Patton, and I kept dueling him, kept dueling him, kept dueling him, kept annoying him for duels until I finally beat him. And that one day I beat him, he pretty much quit melee. And I don't think he was like in the Holdfast Draft League. I mean, not the Draft League, sorry, the Holdfast Conquest League, which happened a few months later. But pretty much like for the melee scene, for the whole dueling scene, group fighting scene, like he was just a no go after I beat him. And I think if I had just walked away from Patton, I don't think I would be the Austro that we all know today. I had to get through that brick wall. And if I didn't, then I don't even know what would happen to me. I might even be in a different gaming community by now, but I kept on persevering and I just told myself that I could not give up and I had to beat this guy. And I did. So that was a little bit dramatic, but that's a little bit of Austro backstory, I guess, for you guys. So yeah, then I just continued training with Jake since Patton quit. Jake was really funny. We kind of a few months later we kind of ended things in bad terms because he was just like he was like 15, 16, and he was like really really edgy, and he just loved like being racist, I guess. And he would like bring all these racist people into the melee discord, and it just got into a huge mess. So I don't have really have a relationship with him now or any sort of contact with him now, but I do owe him a lot because I did train with him a lot and I kind of learned how to sort of fight like very offensive players that just like feint spam and face hug and stuff like that. So I do owe a lot to him. I believe that I did honor him with 2017 Melee Standout. Like, if you check the generation chart right now, his name is in red. So I didn't forget about him at all. And so is Patton's. Patton's name is in red because I owe a lot of what I am now to Patton. Um, let's see here. So even though I wasn't in the 77th, I still was sort of close to them. Like I would merc with them every now and then. Um, I did something called melee certificates. So this was pretty much like melee evaluations before like the Hold Fast Melee Discord. Pretty much like I would first to 20 like a random 77th member and then assign them a melee level like 1 to 5. Um, I remember I think Roger Wilco is still in the 77th. I think I beat him like 20-0. Apparently he's like 45, so I guess we can't go too rough on him. When I did Jupiter's eval, Jupiter was hoping to get like level 4 or 5, and Jupiter doesn't know how to block. So it was like a 23 or 25 or something, and I gave them a middle level 2. And this was extremely embarrassing for Jupiter because he was like the leader of the regiment and was pretty much the de facto melee guy since I quit, right? So they got really angry at me, but I was like, dude, like, you don't know how to block. Like, what do you want me to do? So that was a big thing. But I was just glad I was gone by that moment because then they couldn't really like punish me or anything like that. So doing melee certificates was kind of fun. Um, I'll end this chapter on like kind of a funny note. There was this one incident where I was murking for the 77th, and like I was in a big channel with all of them like before the event started, and I was like about to merc with them, and like I was talking to them and everything was going okay, and then Jupiter comes into the channel and he drags me out of the channel into like the AFK room, and right when I was about to merc, and I was like, what the hell is this, like, what, you're gonna disrespect me like that, really? I was like, okay. So you know what I did? Looking back, this was probably the most savage thing I could have possibly done at this moment. I went to the South Essex Discord run by Ford. The South Essex is a breakoff from the 77th, I believe, and Ford was running it. They were like a skirm company, and I was like, "This is what Jupiter did to me. Can I merc for you guys?" And they were like, "Hell yeah!" So then I merced for the South Essex, and I shot a bunch of 77th, and it was really fun times. And it's kind of funny I did this because Ford actually dated Jupiter online thinking she was a girl. So Ford got catfished pretty badly, but they had a rivalry going on, and I'd merc for Ford, and it was just so much fun. But I think I'm gonna name this chapter "Finding My Place" because I did really find my place. After the whole patent thing, I found my place with Melee. AGS didn't work out, so I just focused on Melee and Melee only. So yeah, after I left the 77th, I really found my place in this community, and my loyalty just lied with Melee. It didn't lie with any regiment. It didn't lie with any developer. It lied with Melee. That's about it.